Every year around this time, NBA teams gather together after months and months of scouting and vetting prospects to bet on their future during the NBA draft. Teams become enamored with these prospects for months and in some cases even years before this moment for so many different reasons. Some teams look at wingspan or hand size, while other teams look at on-court impact and even counting stats. Regardless of what a team's criteria is, front offices often can't help falling in love with these prospects, for better or for worse. See, it's really no different than falling in love for you or me. Sometimes there's one thing you love and one thing you can't stand. Or maybe you start out as something small, but the potential for more becomes increasingly obvious as time goes on. In this video, I'll be exploring how and why NBA teams fall in love with draft prospects and how it may not be that much different than your love life. What is up, YouTube? I'm back, Trey Ball supporters. And yeah, got a good video for you guys. I'm really excited about this one. Alright, so before we go too far, I kind of want to explain the video to you guys a little bit. So first, I'm going to give you guys a type of love or a love trope that fits. And then I'm going to give you guys an explanation of what that means in NBA context. And then I'm going to give you a current or former player that this kind of fits. And I'm going to give you a player that this fits in the current NBA draft class. And then we're going to have some fun and kind of play NBA matchmaker a little bit and see what team this player should go to. An important thing to remember for this video is I'm not comparing players' play styles. It's just kind of the reason that these teams could have fell in love with them. So no, I'm not comparing OG Anunoby to Darius Acuff or anything like that, but I just kind of want you guys to see why a team could fall in love with each of those guys for the same reason. With all that being said, let's get right into our first topic. So as you can see, our first category is going to be love at first sight. And basically what that translates to is can't miss guys who are basically blue chips and they have very low risk and very limited shortcomings. Oftentimes they're very smooth and they're highly developed even in their young age, and they're highly touted usually coming out of college and maybe even high school. A perfect example of this is going to be the King LeBron Raymond James. He basically was projected to be the GOAT from when he was a junior in high school, and he lived up to it. Really limited flaws other than maybe his jump shot coming out of high school, and upon first sight you basically knew what you were getting with this player. A franchise guy who could lead you to a championship, and maybe not one, maybe not two, maybe not three, maybe not four, you know what I mean? So yeah, LeBron is a great example of this type of player. And while I know this guy doesn't have the same type of upside as LeBron, AJ DeBonsta has the opportunity to be a great example of the love at first sight archetype of player. With his big 6'9" frame, he definitely has the opportunity to gain weight, put on muscle, and be the type of player that can lead your team to multiple championships. On top of that, he possesses an extremely smooth game where he's able to get to the rim, finish, hit mid-range shots, and while his three isn't fully developed, shooting only 33% from the line, I see potential there, and I see potential for him to be an effective shooter at the NBA level. Now, AJ definitely fits the bill of being a highly touted prospect out of high school, reportedly being paid $7 million by BYU. And some people speculate that this may have been from Utah Jazz owner Ryan Smith, all in hopes of securing AJ with a #1 pick in this year's draft. Unfortunately, the Jazz do not possess that pick. And I can't even necessarily blame Ryan Smith, because when you see AJ play, you know what you're going to get at the next level. A volume scorer, a guy that can knock down in three, hit mid-range shots, get to the cup, and also get to the free throw line. I know you guys don't like hearing that, but that's a big part of the game as well. And he also has high defensive upside. A lot of people see Tracy McGrady when they see him play, and I think that's a great comparison. And with that being said, my NBA match is going to be the Washington Wizards. I think if you have the first pick, you don't blink, you pick AJ and you move forward. They're a team that's had a lot of lottery picks, a lot of young guys on that roster that need someone that can take them to the promised land. And I think AJ can be that guy for sure. Then they'd be looking at a core of Trae Young, AJ, Anthony Davis, Alex Sarr, Keyshawn George, Trey Johnson, maybe Bilal if you feel that way about him, and Bub Carrington, which will give him a lot of hope moving forward after having the #1 pick. Not to mention they could still move off of Anthony Davis, trade him, get a lot of young players, and some picks moving forward, even though those picks might be slightly less valuable due to the new lottery rules. So for Washington, it should be as simple as drafting AJ, moving forward, and winning some games, but you never know with the Wizards. And one more thing about the Wizards, please go ahead and rebrand. You got good colors, you can even go back to the old colors, but 14 years of the same jersey, it's time. Give AJ some new threads, and let's do it. Next up, we have the quintessential toxic relationship. And when you hear that, what do you think? The highs are really high and the lows can be really low. And that's exactly what I'm thinking about with these type of prospects. And many of these guys have made headlines for things outside of their basketball skill, whether that's a personality thing or a criminal thing or, an effort on the floor thing. But one of the main things about these types of players is they're undeniably talented. And that's what makes it worth it for a lot of these franchises. That give and take of the good and bad is intriguing to a lot of GMs, and nobody really personifies that better than Allen Iverson. It's funny when you look at AI's draft reports from '96 draft because nobody ever questioned his talent or athleticism or skill. They questioned his discipline or his ability to translate to the next level. They questioned if his 6-foot frame would be enough to build around in the NBA or if he'd need discipline from whoever decided to pick him. And it's weird because no matter where you stood on the Iverson debate, you were right. If you felt like you needed discipline, you were surely right, as he had endless fights with Coach Larry Brown and a few viral instances that I feel like we don't need to talk about. But if you felt like he was an undeniable talent that would be a great player in the NBA, you were right as well, with him winning 2001 MVP and even leading the Sixers to a finals berth. So simply put, the highs were super duper high and the lows were mighty, mighty, mighty low. And I can't think of a player that fits this better in this current draft class than Darren Peterson. Peterson's really one of the best players I've seen come out in the draft class in a really long time. He's smooth, can finish, can shoot the ball. He really can do it all, which makes some say, why is he being projected as a 3rd overall pick in this year's draft? And it's really all because of questions of if Peterson loves the game. With his constant injuries and missing certain big games, it's become a real question in the draft process. Now, I personally think it's a little silly to ask if someone with this much skill loves the game of basketball, but it's seriously become a concern for NBA GMs. Now, with that being said, I think a great landing spot for him would be Brooklyn. Now, he'll almost certainly be a Grizzly, but Grizzlies fans, you guys gotta be tired of this type of behavior. After multiple jaw scandals, like you guys gotta be ready to move on and have someone that's ready to play Grizzlies basketball. For Brooklyn, you whiffed on 5 picks last year and you need butts and seats. Your crosstown rival is 2 games away from winning the finals as I'm recording this video, and so you need something that's gonna kind of just excite the fans. And I think Peterson, with his smooth game and ability to get to the rack, dunk the ball, hit threes, it can be exactly that. Simply put, Peterson's one of the most talented players I've seen in the draft class ever. He makes scoring the ball super duper duper easy. But at the end of the day, if he doesn't put some of these questions to bed, he'll always just be a puzzle for NBA GMs to solve. And as you guys see, we have my favorite one of the day, falling in love with a freak. Now here at Trey Ball, we are a family-friendly page, so I won't get too deep into detail, but if you know, that's an exciting feeling. It's a lot of unknowns, a lot of new stuff, a lot of stuff you maybe have never experienced before, and it's driven by emotion, and that really transfers over to the side of NBA things as well. These players are usually driven by upside. What could they be 5-10 years down the line? And that's really similar to real life as well. Turn a hoe into a housewife. Oh my gosh. But on a more serious note, oftentimes these guys' upside can blind a GM from seeing that there's glaring holes in their game. With these players, the flame burns hot, but the flame burns fast, and oftentimes people look up and say, man, what else can you do for me? While there are plenty of examples of this, one person that I feel like fits exactly is Ben Simmons. And really, he was something that we had never seen before. 6'10" point guard. People were saying he's the next LeBron. Colin Cowherd saying, LeBron, you're good, which, what even is that, right? But we had just never seen anyone with that stature, with that handle, with that ability, and it kind of blinded us from seeing some of the obvious issues with this game. The Ben Simmons flame definitely burned hot, but burned fast, as Ben Simmons was an all-defensive end, even an all-star player, but currently he's out of the league. And the issue with Ben Simmons just became, what else can you do other than handle the ball and play defense? I mean, if you're always gonna have the ball but you can't shoot, you're a liability to the team, and we need more out of you, and he was just never able to add that part of his game. Now, I'll admit in this draft class, there's no direct one-to-one fit to this archetype, but someone that I could see following this would be Jaden Quaintance. Now, don't get me wrong, Quaintance possesses extreme potential as a lob threat and a defensive big in the NBA. But with some injury concerns and a lack of polish, he could be another one-trick pony just like Ben Simmons was. The thing with him is he's just one of those players that all you ever hear about is their upside. His athleticism, his hand size, his wingspan, but that can kind of blind you from what he is right now. And while I haven't seen him mocked to go in the lottery, I do see people saying he might be the steal of the draft, which I just can't see unless he develops his game seriously in the NBA. When I look at Quaintance, I see Rob Williams, which as a Celtics fan is great. Rob, the Time Lord, was great for us, but he turned out to just be a bridge player. Jaden and Rob both also possess injury problems that kind of shape how they're talked about. And while Jaden Quaintance might kind of just be a casualty of me needing to add this category to the video, there's real concerns with this game. But when playing Matchmaker, I found some really good matches for Quaintance. Funny enough, Boston, where Rob Williams played, got some older bigs that can help him develop, or like a Philly, they can help him develop. Drummond's there and kind of just help him come into his own as a player. That being said, Quaintance does have tremendous upside, but he'll need a lot of development to help avoiding just becoming another what if. Next up, we got the friends to lovers trope, and what this means to me is that you see someone's game and you like their game, but you're not sure if they can become a star. But the more you watch them grow and the more you watch them play, you say to yourself, man, this guy has all the intangibles to become a star in the NBA. Oftentimes, these guys just need a bigger role. See, I look at the guys like SGA and Tyrese Halliburton, and star wasn't necessarily associated with them when they were drafted. They're supposed to just be good role players or even a little bit above average role players. But as they went on, they grew, they developed their game, and it was obvious to see that these guys could be stars at this level and could even be superstars and lead your team to a championship in the case of SGA. So obviously this is kind of a difficult one to forecast, so I decided to pick two people. I chose Braden Burries and Ibuka Okori. When getting into Burries, he's an extremely efficient shooter, shooting 62% true shooting, and he's a very capable scorer, averaging 16 points per game. And it's really interesting when you watch him play because he's very strong and aggressive, but he doesn't force his offense. Lets the game come to him, takes his shots, gets to his spots, and knocks it down. But still, he's projected to go in the late lottery with scouts saying he lacks elite burst and quickness, and that he has a limited ceiling. And while those are valid concerns, I think Burries' polish on the offensive end of the ball gives him a great fit for this archetype. Now moving on to Ibuka Okori, he's a true scoring guard, averaging 23 points per game as a freshman. 3 assists, and 58% true shooting. So this guy really knows how to fill it up and really knows how to play offensive basketball. Watching him play, you see a true lead guard with him controlling the offense and getting to his spots and even getting to the rim even though he lacks elite size. And that lack of elite size is why he's mocked to go in the late first round. See, a lot of NBA teams know that at that size, if you're not an elite offensive player, you'll end up just being a defensive liability. These issues, coupled with questions about his ability to be a point guard at the NBA level, have tanked his stock. That being said, I'm hopeful that both him and Burries, even if they find the right situation, can be stars in the NBA. Lucky for them, today I'm playing Matchmaker, so let's start off with Burries. For him, I could see him going to Miami with Tyler Hero potentially on the move this offseason. Another landing spot for him could be Dallas. With his ability to play off ball, he could be great with Kyrie and Cooper Flag. Not to mention, if the Mavs decide to move off of Kyrie Irving, Burries has the ability to be a star in the NBA. And importantly for Dallas, if they're able to secure Burries, a young core of Cooper Flag, Braden Burries, and Derek Lively, sounds very promising. That is, if Lively is able to stay healthy in the upcoming season. For Ibuka Okori, things are a little different. I think he could really benefit from spending some time in a G League system and learning how to play the NBA style of basketball. That being said, I think he could really greatly benefit from being picked by the Toronto Raptors. You see, they've had lots of success developing people through their G League system, like Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam. I think he could be the next name on that list. But for both of these guys, it's really about what they do once they're in the door. Growing their game, expanding their game, and developing into the stars I know they can be. Next up, we got another one of my favorite categories, the NBA draft catfish. Now, one of the main things with this archetype is this player has to look good, look the part, and look like they're going to be something big in the NBA. Just like when you're out there swiping on Hinge, Tinder, all that stuff, the person has to look like they're the part and look like they're all that you might need. But in both cases, the closer you look, the more off things seem to be. In the NBA world, there's no one that sums this up better than James Wiseman. See, coming out of college, he had the perfect resume to be an all-star all-NBA type of center. Standing at 6'11", 240 pounds, the Warriors thought they'd be getting their centerpiece for the future. And honestly, I can't blame them. Wiseman had everything that you'd want out of a young center: athleticism, skill, size, and he just seemed like the right pick at number 2 for the Warriors. But whether it was the injuries or just not being able to put everything together or a lack of impact on the court, he just never seemed to be the right fit in Golden State. So on February 9, 2023, Wiseman was dealt to the Detroit Pistons as part of a 4-team trade. And since then, it's kind of been hard for him to find minutes even on bad teams, with him only playing 5 games in the past 2 seasons. Once again, struggling to stay on the court and find a fit. Now, I'd never wish this career arc on any prospect coming out in this year's draft, but the player that I could see this fitting would be Cole Pete. Pete has an NBA frame, a decent handle, freak athleticism, really anything you want out of a power forward center prospect. From the outside looking in, Pete looks like a great choice for a late lottery or late first round team to select. But there are some big gaps in his game for me. He has an unproven jump shot and sometimes relies too heavily on his physicality at the college level, and that's just not going to fly in the NBA. All while still being a limited playmaker, averaging 2.6 assists and 1.6 turnovers. Truthfully, I think Pete can be an impactful role player at some point in his career, but comparisons to his Wildcat counterpart, Aaron Gordon, are a little premature for me. When looking at good fits for Cole Pete, I found 2 teams that really stood out: the Boston Celtics and Golden State Warriors. Both teams are in need of a front court presence that can play defense, rebound, and play good, low usage basketball. On either roster, I could see him sliding in as a good, young, backup big with impact role player potential. For Pete, it's all about living up to his build and hopefully proving me wrong in his NBA career. Next up, we got another elite category. That's going to be the NBA sneaky link. Now, when I think about a sneaky link, I think about something that's under the radar, something that maybe you don't want everybody to see, maybe someone you want for yourself, and I think that sums up perfectly what I'm looking for in this type of prospect. Now, these type of prospects, they definitely are going to have one bankable skill, as with most real-life sneaky links. Whether it's shooting, rebounding, defense, or playmaking, these guys are going to have that one thing that makes them valuable early on in their career. And the reason for the sneaky link status is where they're projected to go in their draft. Most of the time, these guys go late first round and maybe even the early second round. 2 current NBA examples of this are Matisse Thybulle and Sam Hauser for 2 very different reasons. Thybulle was able to make a huge impact for Philly early in his career because of his defensive prowess. For Hauser, things were a little different as it took him a while to crack the rotation, but he proved to be a big part of that 2024 Boston Celtics championship team because of his elite shooting. And both these guys were able to make a huge impact earlier in their careers, but as we've said multiple times in this video, the next question becomes, what else can you do for me? And unfortunately for both these guys, the answer to that question was not much of anything else. That's really the biggest issue with these kinds of prospects. They come in, have a huge impact earlier in their careers, but they're not really able to expand on those skills. And for some of these guys, that's not an issue. They're able to carve out a spot on NBA rosters for 10, 12 years. But for some of these guys, that finds them out of the league quickly. No prospect fits this archetype better than Duke's Isaiah Evans. Just to go off on a little tangent here, Isaiah Evans has an absolute strap, a burner. I mean, he shoots the air out of the ball, and if I'm an NBA GM, I don't know how you can look at that and not want him on your team, especially if you're a contender. To go along with that elite shooting, he also has a 6'7" frame that could be used to develop the defensive side of the ball heavily. Despite showing tremendous upside in his 2 years at Duke, Evans still lacks playmaking and top-tier athleticism in his game. All things considered, when looking for matches for Isaiah Evans, I figured any contender could use his elite ability to shoot the basketball. But the 2 teams I zero in on are the Houston Rockets and Detroit Pistons. Both these teams are absolute contenders that are just simply lacking shooting, and I don't think there's any coincidence that these are the 2 teams that the Thompson twins are on. Evans could be the key to both these teams unlocking their potential if he's able to keep up his shooting prowess at the next level. But for Isaiah Evans himself, success in the NBA could be marked by his ability to expand on his game and develop his skills. And last but not least, we have another one of my favorite categories, and that's going to be that long distance lover that you just can't get enough of. Now, we all got that one homie whose girl goes to another school, or my girlfriend's only on Instagram or something like that, and we know they're fake, but oftentimes these prospects are the exact opposite. Now, don't get me wrong, these guys are kind of unknown in the grand scheme of things, but one of the main marks of these players is they look good from afar. Oftentimes these players possess major upside, but it's always kind of a wait and see kind of thing. Even when presented with elite European talent like Luka Doncic, people were still skeptical of his game and how it would translate to the NBA. And side note, if you were still skeptical of Luka's game even after he won EuroLeague MVP at 17, 18 years of age, it's time for you to hang it up, man. Scouting's not for you. But with that being said, not every Euro product is like that, and that's the perfect opportunity for me to bring up Bilal Coulibaly. In the draft process, Coulibaly looked like a guard who would be able to play make, score, and defend at a high level in the NBA. And as I said earlier, it kind of just turned out to be a wait and see kind of thing, as to this point in his career, he hasn't been great, but he also hasn't been bad either. Simply put, his story remains unwritten. But as the Wizards add pieces, the clock is ticking for him to take a jump in his game. And the prospect that I think fits this archetype is going to be Kareem Lopez. And Lopez's game is still somewhat of a mystery. He kind of plays similar to Cole Pete, but relies even more heavily on his physicality. He hasn't proved to be an elite jump shooter, playmaker, or to have an elite handle, or play elite defense. I mean, he's really a raw prospect, and I don't know how well that'll work in the NBA. All that being said, it was kind of difficult to find a home for him in the NBA draft, but a place I figured he could thrive would be Golden State under the tutelage of Draymond Green. If Draymond can, 1, not punch him in the face, and 2, if Draymond accepts his player option for the 2026-27 season. As much as it hurts for me to say, Draymond's put together a really solid Hall of Fame level career out of doing a little bit of everything for this Golden State Warriors dynasty. If Lopez is selected by the Warriors, it'll be imperative that he gets with Draymond, listens to everything he has to say, and is just a sponge, because that can be the way that he sticks around in this league for a long time. And guys, that's pretty much all I have. I had a really fun time making this video, getting back in the swing and making videos, having a lot of fun. You can expect a lot more Trey Ball content coming up in the coming months, weeks, everything like that, babe. I really had fun making this video, like I said. Hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.